Well, I got a few remarks for this evening, and to be merciful, we're going to maybe summarize a little, because true to Delta Sig tradition, we don't tell time by a clock, we tell time by a sundial. And given that it is 10 o'clock at night, just want to have a few remarks between here and the bar. But I want to thank Tom for his service to this great fraternity over a period of 20 years. Some of you know the story, but Tommy and I go back 45 years, hard to believe. There was a day in 1986 when Tom Archer and a couple of other fraternity brothers showed up at the University of Virginia, and after mom and dad unpacked and set up the dorm room with books and clothes and nice blue bedspreads, myself, Brother Ashby, a few other ne'er-do-wells showed up at the new dorm, or no, the old dorm, and they heard a familiar knock. And parents were gone maybe an hour, and we had Tom, his roommate Blake, Brian's brother Michael, Brian Geschichter, other members of our St. Stephen's community up at 517 Rugby Road. So we gave him about an hour and then taught him what it is to be a Delta Sig. And he's been a Delta Sig, of course, ever since. So Tommy, thank you for what you've done for the fraternity and what you will continue to do. Yeah. A couple other, thanks here. Many have spoken about the Giants in the room, and I also want to thank and recognize Jim Larson, whose term as past president has come to a close. Decades of impact to the organization, in particular the generosity of Jim and his Epsilon Rho chapter brothers to address the scourge and problems of alcohol abuse, and for Jim and Greta's investment in scholarships for our active duty, reserve, and veteran members, and his recent endowment of the growth initiatives to launch the Next Era strategy. I also want to express our deep collective gratitude to two giants of the fraternity, Lauren Mall and E. Allen James, for over 5 years, essentially my lifetime. Lauren's been not only the keeper and teller of our history, but also the conscience of this great fraternity. And it's fitting that at this convention, with Lauren and Allen James, we merged our ritual in a manner that is true to our values of culture, harmony, and friendship, and it promotes the respect and well-being of our brotherhood. And certainly Allen James, for whom the Outstanding Undergraduate Member Award is named, and who has similarly served our great fraternity for over 5 years as its executive director in many other roles as an alumni leader, I want to thank you. I also want to thank the fellow board members on the Grand Council, including our brothers who serve on the Foundation, Title, and Housing Board. It's through your efforts and dedication to this fraternity that we are in a position here today to execute on the Next Era. Thanks to each of you, to those giving of their time, talent, and treasure to support the brotherhood, in particular, the Edmonds family, Michelle, Bobby, and Chris, for the time and treasure to take a creative approach here in building self-confidence and professionalism for our young brothers. If you take a look around the room tonight, these studly young undergraduates sporting tuxedos, it's truly an impressive sight. And I want to thank the fraternity staff for the leadership this weekend and the wonderful weekend of events. In particular, Phil, thank you. Andrew Thomas and Diane Larson for the planning and execution of Delta Sigma Phi's best convention ever. And lastly, I want to thank my wife, Karen, who didn't realize she was joining a fraternity for a lifetime back in 1984. So you in the room, and particularly our undergraduate members, are why I'm so passionate about fraternity. Something we in the room know subconsciously and have known for some time, and we heard it directly from Richard Reeves earlier in this convention, that relationships matter, more so now than ever before in a society which is becoming more fragmented and digitally directed than at any other point in history. Fraternity is all about the people who help you find your path in life, those who are there for you in good times and bad. And you can't take those relationships for granted. They're real, they're genuine, and can be life-altering if you put the time and effort in to commit to them. I learned this certainly firsthand in 1983 when I joined the Alpha Mu chapter at the University of Virginia. And I joined for this very reason, relationships in community. Back in the early 80s, I went to a small boys' church school in Alexandria, Virginia, St. Stephen's. And of our graduating class of about 50, about a quarter of those boys went to the University of Virginia. Friends from high school who wanted to maintain those relationships and those friendships. And so over a period of 10 years, a pipeline of young men joined the upperclassmen at 517 Rugby Road, well over a dozen, to grow those relationships and expand our community. And this is where my passion to serve my brothers began. That passion has led me to law school, serving over a decade in the U.S. Navy, both as a line officer and as a judge advocate, and later now as a practicing attorney for the last 15 years as the general counsel at TE Connectivity, which is a global industrial technology company with over 130 factories around the world and 80,000 employees. And so tonight, service has really driven home my passion for why I am very honored to have this role and responsibility. I learned it in the military, as I said, where you develop and depend on young 18 to 22-year-old men and women to execute the most important service of all, the service of protecting this great country of ours. And this brotherhood has a tradition of service. You see men in the room tonight wearing their medals, but also those that have gone before us, people like Dick Winters from the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment and the Band of Brothers. And also a little known fact that Bruce Lowenberg and I have been talking about over the weekend is that a Delta Sig brother, 105 years old, is the oldest living survivor of Pearl Harbor. But this has validated my belief in brotherhood and the importance of what we do, impacting 18 to 22-year-old men to build a foundation, or to steal a line from Phil in our next era strategy, a launch pad, if you will, for men pursuing educational, professional, and civic greatness. And what Phil and his leadership team and the collective boards of the fraternity, the foundation, the housing, and the title teams have laid out over the last 2 days are what is going to take us forward. And so really this is about the opportunity in front of us, a conviction that the hard work and sticking to a set of beliefs is going to produce results. I've shared some stories with Phil before about the early years of my career and have told him that I might not be the smartest guy in the room, but I am the biggest grind. And hard work will yield success. And we're going to see success in the next era. And outside this room, we're going to talk about the next era. But inside this room, it's the now era. It's the work that we have got to accomplish now to lead this fraternity into the next 10-year cycle. Now, as I said, I'm a Navy guy, and there's a saying in the Navy that the only easy day is yesterday. It's shorthand that emphasizes the constant need for improvement and the relentless pursuit of overcoming challenges. We live in a world that seeks simple, quick solutions, easy fixes, and no regret outcomes. But that's not what fraternity, brotherhood, and personal growth are about. It's about putting in the work to improve yourself, to make yourself, as Chris said, a better man every day. And building those relationships and building strong men chapters and national fraternity can't occur without the collective effort of all of us. So that's why it's so important that the Accelerating the Experience campaign provides the fuel, it provides the engine energy, and it provides, frankly, the ability of the national fraternity to deliver on programs across the strategic pillars that Phil talked about earlier today. Pillars that include national, chapter, and individual level programs. And as I think a little bit about what we talked about over the last couple of days, the now era strategy is right on top of the needs of our young men today. Richard Reeves talked about crisis in mental health, an education gap that young men face, wage and work challenges in becoming a professional, and family and fatherhood challenges. He talked about aggressive friendship and brotherhood as the load-bearing wall of societal improvement. And you lay that against the next era strategy, the now era strategy, about building meaningful relationships, pursuing educational success, launching careers, and embracing service and philanthropy as a servant leader. It's because of that, the work we do, that matters. It's building relationships and bonds that this great fraternity is given to thousands and thousands of our members. And I hope that each of you walk out of here prouder than ever to be a Delta Sig. And I hope you all are now willing to put in the work, because the now era of Delta Sig has the potential to be its greatest yet. And so let's get to work. I'm honored to gavel the 67th Biennial Convention here in Denver, Colorado to a close, and I very much look forward to seeing you all next in Miami, Florida.